Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we can get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.
Welcome, friends, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Up the Waterfall with your hosts, Zanna and Scott Otis.
Howdy.
This is episode 42 of Up the Waterfall. Took a short break there, but we're back and better than ever.
Yay.
This week, we are doing something, a little deep dive, if you will, into hidden details. And because there are so many hidden details in Disney parks and resorts, and water parks and everything.
Everywhere, yeah.
We are narrowing it down to just the Magic Kingdom for this episode.
Seems fair.
And we may not even get them all.
Oh, no. There's no way.
But one of the things I think that makes Disney parks so unique, and part of why they're so beloved, is the backstories and the details, and it's layer upon layer upon layer that really puts you in the story. And I think in this day and age, we've kind of come to take it for granted that story equals Disney.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I certainly remember, like, as a kid watching the Disney Channel whenever they would have those kind of like little behind-the-scenes shows about how they make the magic work. Whenever I found out one of those hidden fun secrets, I always thought, wow, that's something very cool. And I guess that's kind of really what got me into all of this.
Yeah. And some of them are, very visually easy to identify. Sure. And you're just like, oh, that's a tribute to this, or that's from this movie or book or whatever. Mm-hmm. Others are little hidden nods between the Imagineers themselves. Yeah. Some people, spy them and figure them out, of course. And others are tributes to things gone by.
Yeah, a lot of times to like old movies, old previous attractions, and even the Imagineers themselves.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So we're going to start right on Main Street, USA, but you actually are starting even before then, and you have some items from the train station.
That's right. Right from Main Street, USA. Of course, everyone knows that Walt Disney had a fascination and an affinity for railroads. There was one that went right through his hometown of Marceline, Missouri. He was so fascinated with them that he made sure to include them as kind of the quintessential attraction in each of the Magic Kingdom parks, certainly starting with Disneyland, but certainly at Walt Disney World as well. And if you look in the train station, right down on the bottom floor, of course, they have a couple of bulletin boards that have so many different references to a lot of Disney things. There's actually two bulletin boards. One has a listing for Carrollwood Pacific, which of course everyone knows that's his backyard railroad that he had on Carrollwood Drive in Hollywood. There was the one that reads Grizzly Flats Express, which refers to animator Ward Kimball's backyard railroad. His was actually full size. Walt's was miniaturized, but Ward had a full size railroad in his backyard. And he's actually the animator that got Walt interested in railroads when he took him to the Chicago Railroad Fair in 1948. There's also a listing for C.K. Holliday, E.P. Ripley, Fred Gurley, and Ernest S. March, which of course are the original Disneyland railroads. And those are actually named after key historical figures from the Santa Fe Railroad, which was the original sponsor of the Disneyland Railroad. There's one entry that reads Rainbow Caverns Line, which was part of the Living Desert in Frontierland at Disneyland. Starting in 1956. In 1960, they actually expanded that railroad to become the Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, which had it culminated in an eerie trip through the Rainbow Caverns, which I've actually been on before they tore that down to become Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Yes. And there's a tribute to that within Big Thunder Mountain.
That is true. There's also listings for the Rio Grande, the Colorado, the Mississippi, and Missouri, which, of course, we all know are famous rivers in America. But those are actually also the name of the locomotives on the Western River Railroad in Tokyo Disneyland, which you will learn soon.
I wouldn't know.
There's the listings for W.F. Cody, G. Washington, C.K. Holiday, and Eureka, which are the names of the trains from the Disneyland Paris line. Eureka, of course, is the exclamation that miners
Eureka!
say whenever they
found it.
find gold. That's actually the motto of the state of California. What's
a motto?
I don't know. What's a motto with you?
Sorry, I had to do it.
There's a listing for Wilderness Line, which refers to the what we had mentioned before, the Fort Wilderness Railroad. That those cars were actually unnamed, but that ran from 1973 through 1980. There's listings for Roger E. Broggie, Ward Kimball, and Lily Bell, which are the other three railroads from Walt Disney World. And Roger Broggie was actually the first Imagineer who helped Walt Imagineer his own personal railroad, and then, of course, became very essential with the mechanics of the railroad that went around Disneyland. There's listings for D. Crockett. I'll bet you know what that's for.
I
Davy
do.
Crockett, who's not really known for railroads, but it was he of course was famously portrayed by Fess Parker, who also starred in The Great Locomotive Chase, a Disney film from 1956. Yeah. And then there's another listing for Wildlife Express and the Easter Star, which refers to the railroads and the Animal Kingdom line that takes you to Rafiki's Planet Watch. And there's actually a second train bulletin with additional references, one to Kimball Canyon. I mentioned earlier Ward Kimball. One that says Hickory, which is actually from the 1966 film Follow Me Boys with Kurt Russell, Fred McMurray. One that says Medfield, the famous fictional college from many of the fun films from the 1960s, including The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and The Absent-Minded Professor. One that says Harrington Hills, which is referring to the Harrington, the town from Pollyanna. It's interesting because Pollyanna was such an inspiration, always had a positive attitude, that those trains are actually listed as on time.
That's funny.
And one that reads Bullwhip, which is from the 1967 film The Adventures of Bullwhip Griffin, where railroads play a big part. So, there's just so many details there.
Yeah, that most people walk right by.
Oh, yeah.
This was part, I believe, of the D23 scavenger hunt, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There was one of the clues you had to read something on the timetables or something.
Yeah, of course, there were so many questions on that one. But, yeah, there were several questions that referred to that bulletin board, and you had to find them. And
we just talked about that on our last live show.
That's right.
The scavenger hunt. Well, we've talked about it quite a few times.
Yes, we have.
It was a fun time.
So that's just a really good example of tons and tons of details that the Imagineers throw in that they know that most people aren't going to see. But if you just take the time to look and you happen to know,
discover new things, which is, what we've all done over our trips here. Some of these things we've discovered on our own. Some we've read in books and learned from other folks. Some directly from the Imagineers themselves. So
that's right. Good job. So
that brings us to some of these, I should say, we're going to quickly go over because they are so well known. So, of course, on Main Street USA, everyone knows about the windows on Main Street. There's an entire book devoted to them.
That's right.
If you want to learn more about what each window, who it represents, and what sometimes, there's hidden meanings and not just this is for Tony Baxter. There's it'll tell you a person's occupation, and that'll be a tribute to them.
There's actually one guy who has three windows to his name. Walt Disney.
That's true. So we'll link to in the blog post and I guess just the blog post. I'll link to that Windows on Main Street book in case anyone doesn't have it.
Yes, please.
Wants to pick it up. So some things will go by quickly on that. Another one on Main Street USA is the little phone that is in the chapeau.
Yeah. I love that.
This in Disneyland, it was in the Market House.
In the Market House, and then
right?
they made sure to include keep it in there
when they changed it to
Starbucks. Yeah,
but here it was always in just the Chapeau.
I think so. There
If
might have
not,
been a
let us
couple
know.
around.
I feel like
I always get them interchanged.
There might have been
with
one
Disneyland,
in
so.
our Market House. I don't know. I had to work in the Market House every now and then when I worked in Disney Clothiers. Like I had to cover a break or something.
Uh-huh.
That was so weird because that was back in 1995 and we still sold cigarettes. So mostly people would come into the marketplace or Market House to get a pack of cigarettes. And that was weird for me to be selling cigarettes in the Magic Kingdom.
They don't do that anymore.
And people would even ask for matches still. It was another whole time altogether.
Wow.
Very weird. Anyway, so there's the phone in the Chapeau, which has worked and not worked over the years. I have no idea if it's currently working.
And that's actually really cool because if you actually take the time to sit and listen to that whole thing, there's some really cool stories that go along.
And it's probably good that this isn't as popular because then there would be a line, of course, to sit there and listen to the whole thing. But it's fun to it's an old-timey telephone with the little, receiver on the string. Mm-hmm. And you just listen in, and it's kind of like the days when there was like a party line.
Yeah,
so
there was an operator that kind of connected you.
Call.
Yeah, it was actually one of those party lines. It was because of that, the guy who was kind of eavesdropping on the conversation, that he was supposed to call the fire marshal because there was a fire in a house, and it turns out that it was too late. He was too busy eavesdropping. The whole house burned down completely.
There was nothing else to do back then but listen in to other people's phone calls, I guess.
That's right.
But it is a fun nod to what life would have been like back in the turn of the century.
Oh, yeah.
America on Main Street, USA.
That's right.
And this is, I know we're not talking about Disneyland, but there's, we've gotten over the years like CDs that have like all of the background things on it. And there's like the whole, like all of the Disneyland windows in the different lands, like New Orleans Square. There's recordings of people or actually people in the houses. I don't know.
Oh, that's right.
Just, talking as if you're in a real place.
I know we're talking about Magic Kingdom, not Disneyland, but I know there's the fun one at Disneyland with the dentist.
Yeah, exactly. So there, and then further down, if you go down the little walkway between the Erebus Brothers or whatever, Crystal Arts, and I guess whatever the thing is next to that, Uptown Jewelers.
Yeah, it's the only side street now.
I know.
They got rid of
that's
the
what
other
I didn't want to say the wrong name of the side street. Because Flower
Center
Street is no more. It's just Center Street that's left. Okay, so if you go down there all the way to the end, which we have personally done ourselves a few times, and no one has any reason to go down there. There's a couple of tables and chairs. I don't know if there is right now, but there used to be a few tables and chairs there, and you can just sit and just become part of the background. There's
the ambient sounds.
A piano teacher and a voice teacher up in the second story windows, and you can just hear what's going on and forget that there's a million people out in the rest of the Magic Kingdom running to Space Mountain. And those are the kind of things that we love. Oh, yeah. And certainly being locals, we can do that a lot easier, or we're able to do that.
Yep.
To just go there and drink in the details.
Very good.
So what do you have next? Are we going to go to
I have a little bit of a detailed one. Yeah, in Adventureland. There was a time back, I think it was in the 90s. It might have been the late 2000s or the early 2000s, but where they redesigned the El Pirata y El Perico restaurant, which was seasonal opened, but they changed it into the Tortuga Tavern. They have since added a couple of the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom stations there, but there's lots of details in there. First off, the sign shows that it was established in 1673, which refers to the opening year of Caribbean Plaza and the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, which was 1973. There's some Jolly Roger flags above the door that basically tell you that pirates are actually welcome here. However, as soon as you walk in, there is a strict code of conduct on the wall that reads, "Every man has equal title to fresh provisions." And for each one of these, by the way, there is actually something written, I think probably by a pirate. Every man has equal title to fresh provisions, but it says, if and he has the gold. Ye fair ladies shall be treated in a favorable manner. And then it says, wenches be not fair ladies. A witness shall be present for gaming at cards or dice.
Makes sense.
Short drop and sudden step for cheatin' scalawags.
Ooh.
Duels by cutlass or pistol shall be taken outside with witness. Ye witness must have one good eye. Damages unto an establishment shall be paid in gold, doubloons, or pieces of 8. Parrots be not legal tender.
Are these just like added in after? That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever looked at this.
It's a lot of fun.
That is fun.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so there's a fireplace there, and on the mantle of the fireplace is a portrait of a woman. But this is not just any woman. This is actually Arabella Smith from the Young Jack Sparrow series of books. So this is like...
It's all come full circle.
Yeah, it's not just the movies, but also the series of books. Anyway, in these books, her father actually runs the tavern in Tortuga, and her mother was supposedly kidnapped and later killed by pirates.
But it didn't originally have the same name that it has now, right?
Well, I'll get to that. You're jumping ahead. Anyway, she meets a young Jack Sparrow, and together they actually have lots of adventures in piracy. But now she's grown up, and now she runs the tavern, and there is a sign out front that reads, A. Smith, proprietor. Gentlemen, you are welcome to sit down at your table, pay what you call for, and drink what you please. In a card outside is an abandoned sign, the original sign, where it was called The Faithful Bride,
Yes.
which was a tribute to her mother. But it turns out she wasn't as faithful as we had earlier led on. Turns out she wasn't kidnapped at all. But she abandoned her family for a life of piracy.
Now it all makes sense.
That's right. And this all comes from the books. Anyway, but The Faithful Bride was also in the original Pirates of the Caribbean film, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which is where Jack Sparrow and Gibbs go to sign up their original crew. But also in this restaurant is like one of those books that pirate captains would use to sign up a crew. And on this one, it actually includes The Black Pearl, with Jack Sparrow replacing Captain Barbossa. And there's another one where that shows the Queen Anne's Revenge with Edward Teach, also known as Blackbeard. And then one wall on the inside of this restaurant actually has a mural of Blackbeard, which actually strangely looks like actor Ian McShane from the movie Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Anyway, it includes like a big portrait of his face, including the little beard parts where he had little firecrackers, which actually Blackbeard did to kind of intimidate his foes, with lit firecrackers on his beard.
Weird.
Yeah. But also he had this mural has a map with all of the destinations that they go to in that film, including Port Royal and Tortuga. But anyway, but what's cool is that it does run full circle. If you go outside, there's a little courtyard with a little stairway that goes upstairs, and you can see that Arabella is actually in the apartment upstairs. She has hung her coat and her hat on the little thing outside.
Yeah. Isn't there also a book in one of the like little windows?
That was the captain's book.
Oh, did you say that already?
I did.
Oh, I guess I zoned out for a moment.
That's all right.
Well, there's some fun names in there.
There are, yeah. I did not list them all, so make sure to stop by and take a look.
Yes, that's always a fun thing to look at.
For more details.
You might be able to get a better view now because they probably took some of the tables out.
Oh, yeah.
Also in Adventureland, we have, of course, the classic chess game being played by the skeletons within the queue of Pirates of the Caribbean.
They are in a perpetual stalemate.
Yes. And over the years, there have been some cast members that have moved the chess pieces around, so it was always fun to look and see if anything had moved.
At one point, the board got messed up, and they were trying to figure out, like, where were the pieces? And they were trying to find out if maybe they could find a photograph of where the pieces were meant to go, and it turns out Mark Davis had actually put a little piece of paper underneath that had showing
That's
where
really
the chess
cool.
pieces
Look
should
at him. What a helpful
go.
guy.
And they found that and said, "Oh, never mind, we got it."
Also, a quick one, of course. Fans of the Great Movie Ride. If you're riding on Jungle Cruise and you see the plane that's landed
Oh yeah,
in the brush, that is the other half of the plane that was in the Casablanca scene from the Great Movie Ride.
love that.
Which, who knows where the other half is now, I guess.
The Great Movie Ride in the Sky.
Additionally, in Adventureland, in Skipper Canteen, there's a lot in restaurants because they have
Oh my gosh.
people sitting there for a while and you can explore. There's a ton of Society of Explorers and Adventurers.
This is super cool. We'll have to do a post on that, or a show on that
on all
someday.
of that. Yeah. So if you go there and you are seated in the area in the very back where there's actually a butterfly room in there that has like butterflies on the wall, but there's further seating beyond where the main entrance when you walk in is. Or if you just have to go to the restroom, you can walk through this way. Right. And there's supposed to be a hidden bookcase that's leading you to this area. And the Jungle Book is the one that's
Seriously?
pulled down a little. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And there are so many
thousands
hidden names and puns and just really great nods to Imagineers and Disney lore. Some things are like boat evacuation procedures by Cap Size. The Tiki Tiki Tikis of the South Pacific by B. Baker.
Buddy.
Yeah. Let's see. There's one by Primates of the Caribbean by Coates.
Claude.
All sorts of, Left at the Falls. Jungle Commerce by Philip M. Gray. There's all sorts of, there's one in here I need to find that's like Shades of Khaki, which I thought was just funny on its own.
Because khaki in itself is very...
See, here's the Jungle Book that's pulled down.
I see
so you can see
yeah.
that's the one that opens.
Cool.
Huts by Professor Potter. There's actually one, I don't know if I have it up here, that is, it's like New Year stuff, and it's by P. Merriweather from Pleasure Island.
From Pleasure Island, where they celebrate New Year's every year, or every
There's
night, I mean.
Even one called Cruising in the East, and the author of this is a Vagnini.
Stephen Vagnini,
our good friend who has been part of the archives and all sorts of things. He actually is part of Imagineering now as well. So that was fun, and I think we discovered that on our first visit to Skipper Canteen, and I think you sent him a photo.
Later I sent him a photo, and he actually had no idea about that. That was super
funny.
Cool. So when you go to this restaurant, of course, you obviously will please set aside quite a bit of time to peruse and take a look. I remember my first time, I probably spent an extra hour looking at all of these.
I got the Pleasure Island one wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. It was Another New Year by M.A. Pleasure, because it was Merriweather was his first name. It's been too long since I've been to Pleasure Island.
Well, it's been a long time since Pleasure Islands existed.
I know, exactly. Take a look at those. There's so many more that we haven't even named, but it's really fun.
Oh, yeah.
And see if you can...
the Imagineers did a great job with that one.
Name all of the references when you see them. So that would move us on to, I guess, Liberty Square, or do you want to do Frontierland?
Well, if you were going circular, you would come upon Frontierland next. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to do that. The one I was going to list, I was going to do talk about the Briar Patch, but instead I think I'll go to the Pecos Bill Tall Tale Inn and Cafe.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, in 1998, Disney actually expanded this restaurant, and they added so many fun details. Of course, this is Pecos Bill's Inn and Cafe, and of course, if you remember him in the short Melody Time from 1948, he eventually settled down. He tried to settle down with Slewfoot Sue.
Yes.
Until his horse Widowmaker.
One of my favorites.
His horse Widowmaker wasn't having that, and he kind of bounced her to the moon.
I think of you as my Pecos Bill, even though you did not bounce me to the moon. Or your horse didn't.
Well, anyway, in this I guess the story here is, I guess he settled down. So maybe she came back from the moon and settled him down. But anyway, it's now being visited by all of his legendary and tall tale friends. And inside, there's actually a sign that explains the code of the West.
I love
Similar
that
to the
sign.
other one. It's a little different, shorter. It says, respect the land, defend the defenseless, and don't ever spit in front of women and children.
Very good rules.
Very simple set of rules. But anyway, all of his friends have left him mementos and things, just kind of that he's displayed in each of the different rooms, including Buffalo Bill's boots, Paul Bunyan's axe, which you may remember from the 1958 short.
Another
Paul
of my
Bunyan.
favorites.
Johnny Appleseed gifted the pot on his head that he wore as a hat.
I haven't seen any of these, and I really want to go to Pecos Bills right now.
Are you serious? Yeah, we need to go. And of course, Johnny Appleseed was from the same movie as Pecos Bill. Anyway, John Henry has donated his hammer. Jim Bowie, who is actually a real life figure from the Alamo,
Bowie?
he left his knife. The Bowie knife. Davy Crockett, a satchel of gunpowder, and a detailed drawing of Old Betsy.
Wow.
His rifle. And Georgie Russell, Davy Crockett's friend, he actually included a handwritten story of Davy's encounter with Bigfoot Mason. There's a mask and a silver bullet from the Lone Ranger.
Oh, sorry.
Not Zorro. Yeah, I was wondering. I thought there was a Zorro, but it turns out it was the Lone Ranger.
That makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah. But what's really cool is also the building itself has so many really cool architectural styles. It kind of wraps around the corner as you go from the river area to Adventureland. Inside, there's actually a recreation of an indoor hacienda in one of the seating areas. That's kind of one of our favorite places
that's
to
where
go.
we always go. Terrible cell phone reception and Wi-Fi, but
that's okay.
Very nice atmosphere.
But basically, just like in the other places, there's each of the balconies and things like that. They each have different character and things like that, like flower pots and serapes and things like that kind of make you know that people are actually up there.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Kudos to the Imagineers for once again doing all of that.
Do you have anything else in Fantasyland? Frontierland, because I have nothing.
No, I was going to leave it at that. There are, of course, plenty more. You had mentioned the one to me about over on Tom Sawyer Island. That thing that they used to do.
I thought we would mention a couple of honorable mentions, if you will, of hidden details that sadly are no longer there. And the Tom Sawyer Island paintbrushes, which I read about 5 minutes too late, I think. Back in the day, cast members that went over to Tom Sawyer Island to open up the island first thing in the morning would hide paintbrushes on the island because, of course, Tom's
there's
painting
the fence that it's from the original Tom Sawyer book, but they actually have the fence that's partially whitewashed,
right, with Tom and Becky.
Yeah.
So if your name is Tom or Becky,
Becky Thatcher.
Such a good photo op. I don't know what you're doing.
It's a reference to a Mike Fink keelboats.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, they would place these paintbrushes around the island, and if you were lucky enough to find one and bring it to a cast member, they would give you a fast pass to Splash Mountain or something like that.
A pot of gold or
no
$20 or something?
I don't know what they did before the days of fast pass. Maybe they just gave you
maybe a certificate,
a ride thing, because you know how if a ride shut down back in the day, you'd have the little gold paper.
That's right.
Maybe it was that. But I tried and tried. We went there one time super early, but there was no such thing as... Yeah. I guess people would steal the paintbrushes, sadly. Which, why would you want to do that?
Yeah, that's just taking a thing away from a child.
Yeah. I wonder if they're on eBay or anything.
Yeah, I never did that myself. Every time I went to Tom Sawyer Island, it was always later in the day, so that had already finished for the day. But,
all right.
Yeah,
is that all you want to say about Frontierland then?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we've missed any, let us know. There's probably a million things in Splash Mountain.
As I said,
actually...
there's the wooden leg named Smith up in the Frontierland train station. There's all kinds of fun details.
And we didn't even talk about when they redid the queue to Big Thunder. There's so many little, with the portrait of...
Not only that, but
Tony
also
Baxter.
just the fact that they littered that entire attraction the Big Thunder Mountain attraction with actual pieces of equipment from the Old West.
Yeah.
That they used from in kind of like getting gold and that kind of thing.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
that's the kind of thing that they did. Very cool.
All right. So on to Liberty Square.
I've got a lot for this one.
I'm sure you do. Let me do mine first because mine are not as long. I just wanted to mention, of course, the very well-known Mr. Toad in the pet cemetery outside as you exit the Haunted Mansion queue.
As a tribute to the long-lost Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Correct. And he's way up high. It's kind of hard to see him. It's very hard to take a photo unless you have a good zoom camera. But he's there as a silent nod to what once was.
Yeah.
And that's where all extinct rides go, apparently.
In the pet cemetery.
If you are an animal. There's also, of course, the lore with the ring, which before they redid the extended queue, it was kind of not a real ring. It was just...
Yeah, I subscribe to the fact that the cast members at the Haunted Mansion kind of made this up.
Yeah, it was just it became reality because the story was told so many times. But then when they redid the queue, the place where the original ring was cemented over or whatever. So they put their own ring, which actually looks like a ring now. And according to additional lore, I mean, we were told this on the from Marceline to Main Street tour that we did. Originally, custodial would come in and get it out of, they thought it was you're not supposed to be there. Right. And it was 2 or 3 times when they finally were like, hey, this is supposed to be here. It's part of the show. But that you can find if you're not going to go in the extended queue and you're just walking in, it's to the left right before the brick wall starts up again on the ground.
Thrown there from the jilted bride.
Yes.
From inside the...
And we could, of course, do an entire other episode, which we should maybe before Halloween starts.
Especially in the the little chicken exit, or that little hallway that kind of connects the exit to the entrance. In case you were to bypass that, there's all kinds of really cool references in there.
And then, of course, when they redid the queue, those busts in the beginning, there's that whole story that goes along, and you have to read behind each one to solve the mystery of who killed who.
Yep.
That would probably be another whole episode.
That's right.
Let's see, what else do I have for Liberty Square?
Don't take my good ones.
No, I'm going to let you talk about your Liberty Tree and all that stuff. I just wanted to point out not so much a hidden detail with nods to anything specific, but sometimes overlooked. On the second floor of the Liberty Bell, there's the interior room where you can go in, and there's little... Oh,
the Liberty Bell, the steamboat, you mean, right?
Yes, the boat.
Because there is a Liberty Bell there as well.
You can't go up to the second floor of that.
That is true. But I'll be talking about that bell in just a moment.
So there's a little inside area, which is themed very appropriately to... There's New Orleans artwork and... information about the Mississippi River and all that fun stuff. Most people don't go in there because they all want to see the scenery on the outside, but it's fun to pop in. I
always make sure to pop in and take a look around.
So make sure you do that.
I like to walk.
But not right now because the Liberty Bell steamship or whatever it's called, riverboat, is now...
And they're dredging the river.
Today's the last day, and we couldn't get a pass to Magic Kingdom. So
I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go see if I can ride that real quick.
No, you can't get in.
What?
I know. So... We'll have to see sometime in 2021 what they've redone.
Oh, no. That's too long.
I know. All right. Go ahead with your Liberty Tree and your Liberty Bell.
The whole Liberty Square itself is so full of fun, hidden details and references. A lot of them are based on actual historical fact.
And growing up in Boston, it's one of my favorite places.
Yeah, so you'll have to enlighten me if I come across
the
any
architecture
of these.
Is spot on.
Yes. So the first one I'm going to say is actually not from Boston. The Sleepy Hollow Refreshments, right there at the opening of the land, is actually named for Washington Irving's 1820 tale, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, of course.
Which we mentioned in our
scary
movies?
Stuff. Oh, that's right. The scary movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Halloween
going to
films.
say Disney included this, of course, as part of their 1949 feature, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. But the building itself was inspired by Washington Irving's New York Hudson Valley home, Sunnyside, which is an 18th century cottage. And I actually saw a photo of it. It looks just like it. It's amazing.
Wow.
Some other fun details is that there's a sign on the, actually, in this... the silhouette of the headless horseman is on the sign for that store.
Yes.
Across the street, as part of the ye old Christmas shoppy or shop, with spelled shoppy.
You have to say it that way.
Yes, it's designed as a music teacher studio with a sign that says "Music and Voice Lessons by Appointment." Ichabod Crane, instructor. Which is directly inspired from the short story, as Ichabod he was an instructor, and he would trade home lessons for a good home-cooked meal,
Yes.
which he would go around town getting lots of good food.
Had no effect on him. He was quite skinny.
Yeah, he was very skinny. Not sure. Anyway, as I had previously mentioned, there was the Liberty Bell, which they have a replica of that. And it actually once hung in the Tower of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, which is where they signed the Declaration of Independence.
I've been there.
I have not. I've been to the recreation of that at Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California.
Well, you've seen National Treasure, so it's like you've been there.
That's true. I love that. Love that movie. Anyway, this replica of the Liberty Bell was actually cast from the exact same mold as the original, which is by John Pass and John Stowe. It was actually added to Liberty Square in 1989, a couple of years after Disney celebrated the 200th anniversary of the United States Constitution in 1787.
What was there before then?
I'm not sure. I think just little planters and things like that.
Interesting.
Anyway, 1787, when the Constitution came out, that's the year that's on the top of the Hall of Presidents. But anyway, when they added it in Liberty Square in 1989, it was actually 200 years after the ratification of the Constitution in 1789. And just like the original bell, the word Pennsylvania is spelled only with one N. Well, I mean, technically there's two because the Ania has another one. But
I knew what you meant. Not a double N.
The Penn, even though it was named after William Penn, who had two N's in his name, Pennsylvania back then was actually spelled with one N.
Took them a while to figure out how they wanted to do it.
It was not a misspelling. If you look at old maps of the day, you'll see that Pennsylvania was spelled that way oftentimes. And actually, I did not know this. It could actually be rung by guests. You could actually lean in there and ring the bell, and if you do so, it will be loud and it will be heard by all.
Ooh, things to do next time we're in Magic Kingdom.
So that would be fun. Anyway, between the Hall of Presidents and the Columbia Harbor House, there's actually a plaque with 4 human hands that are kind of interlocked, like this and this, which actually represents, this depicts the Philadelphia contributorship for the insurance of houses from loss by fire. It's essentially an insurance company.
Weird.
Yeah, this was actually begun by Benjamin Franklin, who also started the Philadelphia's first fire brigade. They would place this symbol on each of the houses that was represented by that contributorship as a home that would be protected in case of fire.
All the other ones, you're on your own.
That is correct. But it's a really unique one, with the 4 hands in kind of like in a square. So yeah. Take a look out for that.
Interesting.
There's also so many other details throughout Liberty Square, including, of course, the very famous earth-toned pavement that runs throughout the sidewalks of the land. All of the rest of the sidewalks are red, but not the middle parts of Liberty Square. That actually represents the days before plumbing, when they actually there was kind of like a river of wastewater that flowed through the streets from cooking, cleaning, and of course all of that other fun stuff.
There was recently a refuting of this claim on Twitter by Hal Bowers. Go away green.
I have seen other Imagineers claim that it's actually fact.
Well,
so,
I'm just letting you know. People can decide. I think he said that it was just kind of like the parade floats that originally came through there had messed up they were so heavy that they had messed up the ground, and it was just kind of like a cover up for that to prevent it. Not as exciting.
I'm not personally buying it, but okay.
Well, what's interesting to me is that I don't know necessarily, like, because, I'm not a historian, obviously, but I always thought that, like, the, excrement, if you will, from back in the day was kind of like always on the sides of the street, not in the middle where everything would be happening.
Well,
I do think that the roads back then were much, like they didn't last the way they do now. Like they were just figuring out how to make roads.
Yes.
So there would probably be, because of horses and all that stuff, like the road would be
buggies,
torn up more in the middle where it was traveled more. So
that's a good point.
If you don't want to subscribe to the river of poop theory, you can do that. It would be interesting for someone to truly find out.
Yeah.
But who knows if they would have ever like written like, and we're going to do this to represent this. Like that's not something that would have been written down.
I think Alex did talk about that in the Imagineering Field Guide, and I'll have to take a look at what that says.
Let me know, and I'll add it in the blog post when I do that after this.
Anyway, above in some of the second story windows, you'll see some of the shutters on the buildings, and they appear to be askew. And of course, this was intentional, which represented the time period back when, instead of having metal hinges, metal was actually kind of being conserved for war efforts. So those metal hinges were actually replaced by like leather straps, which over time would kind of stretch out. And then the shutter, from the weight of the shutters would actually kind of be at a weird angle. So that's interesting that they would do that. Additionally, over by the Liberty Tree Tavern, there's a lot of really cool windows into there that actually they're framed by panes of handmade glass, including all of the imperfections and little bubbles. That's always really cool to see if you try to look in there.
And you know that from visiting Paul Revere's house, and
that is correct.
Some of the houses in Salem that we went in, that is how things look.
That is true. Additionally, over, let's see here. Oh, I was going to talk about the fact that there's so many different addresses. And you remember how we saw this in that recent scavenger hunt?
Yeah, we did Mouse Adventure.
Yeah, where they had all of these. That's where we found out all about this. That there's so many different. There's only so many buildings that house the different either restaurants or attractions or shops, but they have the facades to make it appear as though they're actually several different residences with different addresses, different front stoops, different doors,
and different architectural styles.
Oh yeah, different architectural styles, and they each have their own little number, and there's actually maybe 20 to 25 of them, something like that.
We looked at all of them back in March.
So it's really cool that they did that, and each one has its own different like there's one that has like a little doll in the window from a little girl who's waiting for her father to come home. Flower boxes and storm cellars and all kinds of fun details. That's cool.
I will add one thing. When you were talking about ye old Christmas shoppy, how it's 3 different buildings. One of the buildings was like a wood carver or something, I believe. And if inside of that building, like where the registers are and things like that, there's like little piles of wood.
Oh, that's right. Wood
built
shavings
into the register area and stuff like that. So
very cool.
Little details to make it all mesh together.
I love that. Also, of course, finally in the middle of Liberty Square is, of course, the giant Liberty tree, the 100-plus-year-old oak tree that's been standing there since the opening of the park. This is actually a Liberty tree, of course, was inspired by actual Liberty trees, which, of course, was very famously represented in the 1957 Disney film Johnny Tremaine, where there's a Liberty tree, as heard in the song there, that says, "Plant the seed in our homeland, boys. Let it grow where all can see. Feed it with our devotion, boys. Call it the Liberty tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons. Yes, we are the sons of liberty." Of course,
including James Otis.
That's right.
A distant relative.
A very
I like
far
to throw
distant.
that out all the time.
The Sons of Liberty, of course, were a secret society of community leaders who had come together to plot against the British and to form their new nation. As these activities were considered treasonous, they had to meet in secret. So each of the homes that was represented by a Son of Liberty would actually hang a lantern in the tree. And to find out where the meeting was, they would actually light the lantern of the home where that person, where that Son of Liberty was.
You had to memorize everybody's lantern.
That's right.
That's very cool.
As a way so that only they knew
Yeah.
where the secret meetings would be. But of course, this Liberty Tree at the Magic Kingdom has 13 lanterns, which kind of represents the 13 different colonies of the United States, and each one is distinctly different than all the others.
Back when I took the Magic Kingdom Family Fun Tour, which I can't remember the official name of, but it was the family one, we were told that one of the lanterns had the bottom missing from it, and that was where Tinkerbell was, and she had escaped. So that's how you knew which one was Tinkerbell's lantern, because it had no bottom in it.
Yeah, see, I'm not buying that theory because Tinkerbell is from London.
This
I
is
mean,
true.
she could be
but
found
where
in
is
London.
Neverland? The second star to the right could be a
Which
long
is
trip from
not
London.
in colonial
You never know.
times of America. But, you know, it's the
I'm
family
just
fun tour, so
passing
that's
along
okay.
what I was told.
Wow. Anyway, you'll like this part. Johnny Tremaine is actually a really cool Disney film
I
if
love
you ever
it.
get a chance to see it.
Yes,
Because
we should watch it again.
There's so many really cool references to the colonial times in Boston. You know, he was a young apprentice to a silversmith. Paul Revere. Actually shows the Boston Tea Party, as well as the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere.
Yes.
And then, of course, the fighting that took place in Concord and Lexington. And actually, as I mentioned, the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, are right around the corner from all of this. There's that one building in between the Hall of Presidents and the other restaurant, the quick service.
Columbia Harbor
The
House.
Columbia Harbor House, thank you. That actually represents the Old North Church in Boston. It's not quite as tall, but it does have...
It looks nothing like it, but
No,
yes.
it does. Looks nothing like it, but it does have a window
Yes.
with two lanterns. If you may remember, the one if by land, two if by sea.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, two lanterns are lit because that showed that the British were actually going to march on Concord by way of the Charles River. So I believe the Old North Church was, at the time, was the tallest building in Boston, which is why they used that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this building, not quite as tall.
No, but they were giving you the general idea. There's
Yes.
two lanterns and...
And they actually used to have like a little set of like cannonballs and like not cannonballs, but like militia type gear that Minutemen would have at the ready to be able to fight at a minute's notice. But that is now gone for some reason.
They don't want to promote Minutemen.
I guess not. But anyway,
All right.
that's what I have from the Liberty Square, which is really fun. Lots
Yeah,
of
I mean,
cool
it's-
details. I love it.
All right. That brings us to Fantasyland,
It does.
which I don't know that we have too many like in-depth stories for Fantasyland. Maybe you do. I don't know.
I have one little thing.
All right, I'll
Not-
go through
not too
my
much.
quick ones then, which are, of course, the Cinderella Fountain, which I recently posted on Instagram.
That's very cool.
That was kind of what inspired this episode topic to me anyway.
What specifically about it?
Well, it is Cinderella in her scullery-made clothing, if you will, with the little mice and birds around her.
Aw.
And behind her is just, a mural kind of thing. But there's also a crown on there. And if you are child height, there's two different stories I've heard. If you're child height, then you look up at her and she's wearing the crown to show you that anyone can be a princess, even if they're in rags and covered in fireplace ashes.
That's right.
The other theory I've been told is because there's actually water fountains around the front, so everyone has to bow to the princess and see.
I believe
she
both
is
are
really-
true.
So there you go. Fun detail that didn't have to be there, but it is. So
That's right.
additionally, in Fantasyland, there's a lot of little nods to other attractions that were once there, including, of course, 20,000 Leagues
I missed that.
Under the Sea. There is a nautilus carved into the inside of Winnie the Pooh's tree.
That's right.
Which I also recently posted on Instagram. So check that out.
That tree was actually first located where 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was,
and
until they moved it.
When they were like figuring out what to do with that area, it was Pooh's playful spot, and it had all that squishy.
Yeah, it was
ground
while they
to
were
jump on
building
and play
the new the queue enhancements for that.
And
so
then they moved it across, and that was like one of the first
a huge tree.
Disney Parks blog videos where they did like a whole time lapse of moving that tree. That was fun.
Right. But the hidden reference to the Nautilus, of course, remains.
Yes, it does. And then there's another one which we have talked about previously in whatever that greatest cues of all time episode was. Our favorite top 10 cues, something about cues. There is a bigger Nautilus carved into the outdoor portion of the queue to Little Mermaid ride.
I love that.
Ariel's Undersea Adventure.
There's so many great water features right around there, which of course, there needs to be with this with the submarine. So.
And it's just very subtle. You can definitely miss it if you walk by.
Most people have no idea.
And then on the exit to that attraction, this is one of my favorite ones. It's very difficult for some people to see because it spans across like
4 or 5.
Yeah, different rock formations.
Yep.
But when you put it all together, it makes an actual like profile standing up of Steamboat Willie with his hat on.
Yeah, and you have to line it up just perfectly. You have to stand in just the right spot for everything to line up real
and
nicely.
Even then, it's still like, I guess it's Steamboat Willie. But I mean, it was done intentionally. It definitely is that. So that's a fun little nod as well.
That's right.
And then the other thing is across the street from that, which is like a DVC kiosk area, which is not manned, I don't think, at this time, but it's like Harper Goff map maker, which is of course a reference to Harper Goff, cartographer,
which is essentially a map maker.
It is indeed.
H. Goff,
and he was instrumental in designing 20,000 Leagues, if I am not mistaken. So that is a lovely nod to him as well. And that's all I have for Fantasyland.
Did you know that they actually used some of the water from the original lagoon?
I have heard that, yes.
Into the mermaid water.
They
there.
like to tell people that, yes.
I know.
Who knows?
In addition, over in Fantasyland, there's that fun Sir Mickey shop, which I loved. It's actually inspired by 2 Mickey Mouse cartoons, which are completely unrelated, except that they both have Mickey Mouse and a giant. One, he's a farmer with Donald Duck and Goofy, and one, he's a brave little tailor. So that's of course one of the cartoons, Brave Little Tailor. The other is Mickey and the Beanstalk. These on the outside of the shop, there's the giant beanstalk that grows. Actually, kind of goes right through the sign itself of the Sir Mickey sign, and kind of takes it up with it. Which of course grew from the magic beans that Mickey got when he sold their cow. Inside, there's above the doors a nice painting of the Happy Valley from Mickey and the Beanstalk, and actually it shows the keys that Mickey, Goofy, and Donald used to try to free the magic harp from the giant. And on the other side of the shop, there's so many props from the tailor shop, from the Brave Little Tailor side, including scissors, thread, needles, and ribbons. And there's even a clock where the hands of the clock are scissors for some reason.
Yes.
And I believe it's 4:30 on that clock. Not sure why. Inside one of the windows out front, there's a bunch of more props and a sign from Mickey saying he's not home because he's out giant hunting. Of course, he was assigned to the task of being a giant hunter because he was bragging about getting 7 all in one blow. But he was actually referring to little houseflies. And then actually inside, there's actually a little Mickey himself who's actually starting to climb the beanstalk, holding a lantern. But what's really cool is on the other side of the shop, it actually shows Willie the Giant kind of lifting the top of the roof off of the shop, kind of looking inside, which he actually did in the short itself. Willie actually later appeared as the in Mickey's Christmas Carol as the ghost of Christmas Present. So yeah, nice,
very cool,
fun details there.
That brings us
That's
to Tomorrowland.
That's right.
Which the only thing I have for Tomorrowland is the little palm trees that everyone now knows because everyone keeps talking about it. That they're the backstory of the 1994 Tomorrowland was that the Tomorrowland, whatever, Power Authority or something, was getting solar power from these palm trees. And when the coconuts grew on the palm trees, that was power, and they could harvest the power by harvesting those coconuts. And there's one tree that doesn't open all the way, and it has no coconuts because it's already been harvested. And that's the story that has been told.
I think they created that story when they found out that palm tree was actually broken and there was no way to fix it. So they probably said, you, Imagineer, create a backstory for why this is that way.
Yeah. I mean, that happens every now and then where they need to have an official backstory statement and all that
funny,
stuff. But yeah, that's all I have. I know you have some Space Mountain.
I only have a little bit
things.
From the queue of Space Mountain. When you walk in, there's, of course, a giant sign that says it's Starport 75, which, of course, refers to the opening year of Space Mountain, 1975. And there's actually a board right on the inside that lists all the connecting systems and stargates that are accessible from Starport 75. I'll only list the active Earth stations that they have there, including the Tomorrowland Station, MK1, which, of course, because the Magic Kingdom was the first of all of the Space Mountains, TL Space Station 77, which, of course, refers to Disneyland, which it's opened in 1977, the Discovery Landing Station, Paris, which is from Discoveryland at Disneyland Paris, Ashita Base, which is actually refers to the Tokyo Disneyland Space Mountain. Actually, Ashita is a Japanese word for tomorrow. Did you know that?
I did not.
And then the HK Spaceport, ETKT, which refers to the Hong Kong Disneyland Space Mountain and the fact that it's an e-ticket attraction. Later, as you're going along, going underneath the railroad tracks, on the left-hand side, there's lots of star charts and maps and constellations with a lot of star names and things like that, galaxy names, some actual, some fictional, including the Disney Hyperion Resort, which, of course, refers to the early Disney studio.
Yes, you pointed that one out to me before.
I've gotten you on Space Mountain before?
Yes, obviously, many times.
Hyperion is actually a name of a moon of Saturn, too. Did you know that? And then after you get through with the ride, you've now traveled to the Tomorrowland Station MK1, and we pass through the baggage claim area.
Yes.
With there's a little robot there who's kind of monitoring the little things there. And there's actually little stickers on the luggage in there, which kind of shows you where a lot of their passengers have been, including Pluto, Ceres, Lunaport, Titania, and my favorite, Mesa Verde.
You said it right. Yes, from Horizons.
From Horizons, that's right. One of the 3 choices on where you could go at the end. So yeah, that's what I have from Tomorrowland. I mean, as I said, there's so many more all around. We haven't even scratched the surface as to.
But these are our favorites and ones that had, I believe, the most backstory or the most well-known, because we sped through a few of them. I also wanted to mention really quick, back up on Main Street, I forgot because this was on the back of my paper and I didn't turn it over. There is, of course, outside of Tony's Town Square restaurant, the Lady and the Tramp paw prints.
Oh, that's right.
In the cement, which is usually covered by strollers and you can't really see it too well. Maybe you can nowadays. I'm not even sure if Tony's is reopened, but that's a cute thing. And they're actual, like, dog paw prints.
Well, yeah, it was represented in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Because they
Lady
did
and the Tramp.
And that's all I have. So
that's a good one.
If we missed any major ones that you would like to tell us about, make sure you let us know in comments below. On the YouTube video, if you're watching there, you can comment on the blog post. And I did want to take a quick moment to say that in this time, which everyone knows, there's been so many cast members laid off and displaced. And we would love it if you could go to castmemberpantry.com.
Yes.
If you are able to donate or help. If you're local and you can't donate, you can also volunteer your time. There's another Facebook page I've recently learned about, which I believe is called, I can't remember. So I'm going to put that in the blog post. It was something like Ears to the Magic or something like that. I can't remember. So I will put it in the blog post, and it'll be in the description of the YouTube video as well. But basically what that is all of the people who have been already laid off that may have other talents that they're trying to sell something or do something on the side to basically, have a living going on and keep their houses and cars and all that good stuff. So you can get some really cool commissioned art and other things that, cast members are willing to offer.
That is a wonderful cause.
It is.
Great.
So we would love it if you would help out. There's so many people that are being affected by this. So we thank you, of course, for listening and watching if you're watching. And we will see you on the live show every Thursday at 8 o'clock.
That's right.
On Facebook.com/Zannaland or YouTube.com/Zannaland.
I love that show.
It's super fun. Everyone that comes tells us how great a time they had and how they love the games.
Yeah, we always end with super fun games.
Yes,
and
it's
different
very
ones
silly.
every
Different
time.
games every week. Nothing boring going on there. So thank you again for listening and for joining us up the waterfall.
That's right. Bye now.